them without noticing. A pleasantly warm morning became an unbearably hot afternoon. The pack and heavy Simonova rifle began weighing on me. My bad knee ached. I began to lag. Tamara, the Russian army jacket tied around her waist, offered to carry the pack for a while. I declined her offer. "Don't be a fool." Stopping me, she quickly slipped the straps off and took the pack. "Thank you," I said, and then helped her on with the thing. For the rest of the day, we traded the pack back and forth. The afternoon waned. Finally, the heat began to abate as we found ourselves on a trail leading down through the acres upon acres of dead, unharvested corn. Sergo, who had been ahead of us, stopped. He waited for us to catch up and then fell in stride. "When do we get to America?" There was a pouting tone to his voice. He turned his dented head toward me. "How much farther is it to America?" he asked. "Quite a ways ahead," I said, not wanting to tell him it was thousands of kilometers away and across the sea. "We have a lot of walking ahead of us. We have to keep pushing on. The faster we go, the sooner we'll get there." "Oh, okay," he said like a child. "I'll make it. I'm a good walker." He strode ahead of us as if to prove he was a good walker and was going to get to his magical destination as fast as possible. We were making our way down the trail through a cornfield, the dead, head-high corn husks creating sort of a walled-in walkway. Ahead, at the bottom of the slope, was an open area, and beyond that, a dark, cool-looking forest. "Wait up, X." Tamara had stopped. She pulled off the backpack and, sitting on it, was taking off a shoe. I made my way back to her and waited as she shook a pebble out of her shoe. "Are we getting closer?" called out Sergo from a dozen meters or so ahead of us. He had stepped up onto a rocky hummock in the middle of the trail, his rifle yoked across his arms. He was squinting, looking off into the distance as though trying to spot America. A gunshot ruptured the quiet. Sergo staggered backward as his rifle went flying. He landed on his side. His rifle, its stock smashed by a bullet, lay several meters away. Dazed, he was looking at a bloodied hand and trying to get up when a German soldier rose into view in the cornfield. Crunching out from it, he moved slowly toward Sergo. Grinning, he was aiming his rifle at the helpless man. Sergo's terrified eyes swiveled in our direction. The German's gaze followed Sergo's. He saw us, but his rifle was still pointed down. Mine was pointed at him. I fired. A small red stain appeared on the soldier's shirt, an expression of surprise on his face. He looked down, then brushed at the stain as though he had just spilled something on himself and was trying to get it off. He dropped his gun, raised his hands, and said, "Don't shoot," in German, then crumpled in a heap. X. Tamara was standing, pointing. A second German pushed out from the tall corn. I fired. His helmet flew off. He fell and lay there stunned, half-conscious. "Wo seid ihr zwei?" Far off, an anxious voice was asking, "Where are you two?" in German. I looked around but saw nothing. I looked to where Sergo had been, and then saw his feet disappear as he crawled into the corn and vanished. "Was ist passiert?" a German had yelled. "What's happening?" I heard several more voices, and then the sound of rustling, crackling movement. Through grass and spindly corn stalks, perhaps 200 meters away, German soldiers were hurrying in our direction. The grass and corn were shoulder high, and I could see little of the soldiers except their bobbing helmets. And if I could not see them very well, I realized, then they probably could not see us or what had happened in the high-walled pathway through the cornfield. Still, they had heard the gunshots, and it would only be moments before they were on us. I had to do something, think of something, or we would be dead. "Stay back!" I yelled to them in German. "Anhalten! It's a trap!" Tamara was staring at me, terror and confusion in her eyes. "Deckung, es ist ein Trick!" I shouted. "Get down! Alle zurückbleiben!" Helmets sank from view. "Follow me!" I hissed at Tamara in Russian. We raced past the two fallen Germans. and for a time the cornstalks of our walled-in pathway were high enough to hide us. We had almost made it to the forest when the pathway abruptly ended. We stopped. Between the forest and us was now a long stretch of open ground. Tamara looked toward the forest, then to me, with her eyes, asking me what we should do. "We'll have to run for it," I panted. I glanced back at the grassy patch of hillside. I saw a helmet. Then, like some sort of surrealistic garden, scores of German soldiers suddenly sprouted on the grassy slope. "There!" yelled one of them. "Da drüben! Down there!" A single gunshot popped. "Run!" I yelled, and then we were racing across the stretch of open ground. From behind us came the brrrt of an automatic weapon. Bullets snapped past. There were shouts in German, the sound of fast, noisy footfalls coming down the hill, and then a flurry of rifle fire. Tamara and I stumbled into the forest as bullets punched into trees and kicked up little sprays of dirt and gravel. "Get them!" screamed a voice not far behind us. Tamara and I were now racing through the forest. Bullets lashed at the vegetation overhead, showering us with shredded leaves. We zigzagged, then scrambled off in a different direction, along a dry stream bed. There was another burst of automatic weapons fire, but it was behind us and far off to our right. The Germans, it seemed, had lost our trail. Gasping for breath, we slowed our pace. We left the stream bed and found ourselves picking our way through the tangles of briar and heavy brush. I realized I no longer had my rifle and wondered vaguely where I'd left it. The pack, too, was gone, left back on the pathway through the cornfield. The ground became muddy and soft. We hopped over a tiny brackish pond, pushed our way through reed-like vegetation, then moved quickly along a narrow pathway, perhaps an animal trail. We seemed to be alone. But then the air suddenly stood up on the back of my neck. "Welchen Weg? Which way?" an out-of-breath voice huffed. Terrified, Tamara and I stood riveted in place. The voice was in front of us.